Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining our new webinar series, Got 15 Minutes, quick and straight to the fact presentations with a focus on contamination control for this week. My name is Nisa Barkat, and I will be the moderator for the series this summer. I have been at Novatek for almost 10 years, and I hold the role of Associate Director of Marketing. And with me for our first presentation, we have my colleague, Cheryl Zamanzadeh. Hi, Cheryl, how are you doing today?
Great, Nisa, thank you. And thank you for putting this together. I'm really excited about it all. I'd like to thank everyone in advance for giving us your time today. It is, again, just to initiate the conversation of which we can grow it from there further. I am Novatek International's Director of Sales, Cheryl Zamanzadeh. Happy to be with you here today.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. A few quick housekeeping reminders for everyone. Our webinar series will be 15 minutes or less, and you can actually ask some questions or make comments in the chat panel below, and we'll make sure to get to them individually via email after the webinar. Also, all your microphones are defaulted to mute. And last but not least, a recording of this webinar will be accessible to those who have registered for our webinar series. So let's get to it. The clock is on, 15 minutes or less. Our first part one series of our contamination control for pharmaceutical manufacturing, how to mitigate risk in environmental monitoring for vaccine and aseptic manufacturing, a very important topic in today's atmosphere. Novatek solutions solely focus on reducing risk, but today we are only going to focus on contamination risk, and in particular, those risks that are associated with environmental monitoring. Cheryl, on to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nisa. So let's get right to it, right? How do we increase throughput to meet an increased demand, especially in today's world and in today's climate? As with all well-defined processes, our answer really lies in the benefits found in the definition of your process and the structure organized around that process. So we define our process and, of course, all the respective parameters. We generate data, and then we analyze that data to identify risks, as well as to process our results. Once identified, we can put measures into place to mitigate those risks, inherently improving our process. This directly translates into decreased downtime. So the key then becomes the definition and the data that is generated by our process, the most important parameter being how robust the system is. So Novatek's environmental monitoring system is a process-based, business-ready solution. The importance of a process-based system is the removal of bottlenecks or barriers associated to the process that force the user to work across multiple systems, resulting in slowdowns, either from redundancies or delays. So in a process-based system, the user is not leaving that system in order to address another application, process, or given area in order to move to that next step. Further, a process-based system increases throughput because the entire process is encapsulated into one system. Novatek's environmental monitoring system also provides the ability to reduce risk. So let's look at that. How does it address risk mitigation? So we begin by identifying risk. First and foremost, as we increase our throughput and meet that increased demand, we must also be aware that we increase risk and we increase error, right? Everything is increased. So how can we ensure that we mitigate those risks? First and foremost, we have to be aware of our risks, all of our risks. Novatek's environmental monitoring application provides an abundance of knowledge and actionable information, turning your data into information from which you can make decisions and, of course, apply actions to those decisions. Once again, if the process is defined in an automated system that is designed to identify the challenges in the process, it will inherently define where the risks are. But of course, we have to keep in mind that environmental monitoring is anything but constant. It's an ever-evolving dynamic environment that we must be able to examine our data from different angles. In other words, those risks are not always going to be the same, and we need to be able to continuously look at our process, our data, our systems, etc., from different angles and constantly evaluate. With increased throughput, the need for metrics then becomes paramount. A continuous feedback loop embedded within the system highlights areas of high risk that are necessary to proactively reduce error. Once clearly identified and captured the process in its entirety, we will understand risk that exists within each step of the process. So not my step or your step, but within the entire process. At each step, where's the risk? Not only will we understand the risk today, but we'll understand the risks every day in environmental monitoring that is a multifaceted hierarchical approach. Understanding the risk enables us to mitigate and to continuously improve the process that thereby decreases downtime. Of key importance is the ability to understand that state of control in real time. From high-risk areas and high-risk products to personnel monitoring, recovery rate reporting, a state of control is achieved by having the generated data provide feedback, knowledge, metrics, and the like. Novatek's environmental monitoring systems turn the generated data into a powerful tool that can provide risk analysis and root cause. It can demonstrate pattern recognition, and it can empower the user with drill down metrics. Every time we have an anomaly, the key is to addressing the issue. That issue is impacted by time it takes to identify the source of the problem. Once identified, does the resolution begin? Identification, therefore, becomes key in reducing that downtime. Proactive measures to prevent that downtime in real time becomes your goal, right? So proactive measures to prevent that downtime has to be understood in real time. We want to be able to take actions in real time so that they are truly actions in response to what is happening with that environment. A problem identified in manufacturing touches and impacts on many given areas in the process. In the example that we're seeing here, we see how data integrity becomes a focal point. Time constraints for the user becomes an issue, as did the supervision. There were errors in calculations and with samples and the methods that led to the contamination. So really understanding that global picture of each event and all the multiple layers that are associated to each gives us the power to correct, but more importantly, the power to prevent that from happening again. So ensuring that production areas are in a state of control, that we understand those identified risks, that we can mitigate them so that we do not have downtime. Then we are in a state of control, which allows us to increase production. And that, of course, will reduce time to market for the vaccine, and above all, ensures the safety of the product, thereby saving lives. A little piece of information for you about Novatek International. They've been thought leaders for 20 years in software innovation for the pharma industry specifically. We thank you very much for your time today. It was just a snippet of information, but it was really to engage the conversation and just to begin it. I'd be happy, as with all of my colleagues, to continue that conversation. Please take note of our coordinates here, whether by email or LinkedIn or phone, so that we can continue this conversation with you. Once again, I thank you very much for your time, and I turn it over to you, Nisa.
Cheryl, thank you so much for that explanation on the importance of risk reduction. We also want to say thank you to everybody who joined us this afternoon. Please keep aware of our next webinar, which will be on our new disease control and hygiene software for hospitals and healthcare facilities. And of course, on Thursday, July 16th, we will continue the discussion for contamination control for the vaccine and manufacturing of aseptic drugs in the pharmaceutical industry. Thank you very much, everyone. Take good care and be safe and well, and we'll see you at our next webinar.